So the top quarterbacks in college football for 2026, this may be the deepest class of quarterbacks in college football that I've seen in quite some time. And I'm just going to really all we're going to do you ever just sit with your friends and you sit back and you just start rattling off names of football players and you just have a great time doing it? That's exactly what this show is going to be like tonight. Because I'm just going to go through and I'm just going to name some of the top quarterbacks in college football. Trinidad Chambliss, obviously at Ole Miss, really came on the scene last year, is going to be in the Heisman Trophy conversation. I expect him to be a finalist when that time comes around in December. John Mateer at Oklahoma, Darian Mensah at Miami, Gunnar Stockton at Georgia, Sam Levitt at LSU, Arch Manning at Texas, CJ Carr, Notre Dame, Dante Moore, Oregon, Julian Sayin, Ohio State. I just rattled off about 9 to 10 names. And think about the guys that I didn't mention. I could have mentioned Lenora Sellers at South Carolina, uh, Devin Dampier at Utah, Noah Fafita, Arizona, Kevin Jennings at SMU. I mean, we could go Rocco Becht, Penn State, Jaden Maiava, USC, Damon Williams, Washington. There are plenty of guys, and I haven't even named them all. So this is a really, really deep class of quarterbacks in college football in 2026. So we're just going to go through and talk about some of the top ones, and then I'm going to share my underrated quarterbacks because I also have 10 underrated quarterbacks that I want to share. So I mentioned Jaron Kialwe Sagapogotele, also known as JKS. That's what we refer to him as on this show. Plays at Cal. I mentioned him when we were doing our ACC preview show. This would have been maybe 3 weeks ago. If you missed it, you can always go and check it out later after this show. JKS at Cal is going to be a name that you're going to want to know this year. Trust me when I say that. 5-star coming out of high school from Hawaii, originally committed to Oregon, went to campus, made it to Eugene. He was expecting to be the starter, but then realized, hey, this Dante Moore kid's pretty good. He hit the exit door. The coaching staff at Oregon was obviously not happy about that. But now he's at Cal, and I watched him as a true freshman last year. And Cal, they're going to be oftentimes they're going to be playing in a standalone window. I know they're in the ACC now, but if you think about what Pac-12 After Dark used to be, and Cal being a former Pac-12 team, which, by the way, RIP to the Pac-12, Cal's got some late games this year. So after the games of the day have already gone by, right, your primetime game at 6:30, after that's ended, hey, man, settle in, watch some Cal football. JKS is going to be a quarterback that you're going to want to watch. Darian Mensah at Miami, obviously, right? He played his college ball at Duke last year, was at Tulane with John Sumrall the year before that. Really big-time name. The report is that he's getting paid $6.5 million to play for Miami this year. I just think that he offers more of a big play ability than Carson Beck did last year. And that's no slight to Carson Beck. Carson Beck did exactly what was asked of him in that offense. But Darian Mensah brings a little bit more to the table. He's more talented. I could see him being a first-round pick when the NFL draft rolls around in 2027. Darian Mensah at Miami. Just sticking within the ACC. I mean, Kevin Jennings at SMU. I don't really know how many people talk about Kevin Jennings. But if you go and you study this guy, you watch him closely, you watch him intently, the arm talent on the guy is just ridiculous. And then you go to the Big 12 and you see that, the Big 12's known for having really good offenses. That's something that they've really always been known for. But you go to the Big 12 and you think about the quarterbacks that are in the Big 12. Noah Fafita, a 4-year starter at Arizona. And I tell you what, I remember watching Noah Fafita as a freshman, and he's really just he's been good. He's just been really good for Arizona. Kind of reminds me a little bit the way Kyler Murray plays. Noah Fafita is a really small quarterback, so the comparisons to Kyler Murray are clearly there, but he's just a really fun quarterback to watch. Bear Bachmeier at BYU, he's a guy that when Jake Retzloff, if you remember that name, was at BYU 2 years ago, had an honor code violation at BYU. He was going to be suspended for the entire year. So the way that Jake Retzloff kind of avoided that suspension was he entered the transfer portal. This was back when there were two transfer portal cycles. There was one in the winter, one in the spring. Jake Retzloff, he enters the spring transfer portal, ends up at Tulane. And then there's this Barrett Bachmeier kid who looks like he's built like a linebacker, hence the nickname Bear. Wears number 47, weighs 250 pounds, really stocky looking. And he was, I guess, a revelation for BYU last year en route to that 11-1 regular season. Played in the Big 12 championship game, lost to Texas Tech, won in the Pop-Tarts Bowl over Georgia Tech. BYU had 12 wins last year. And their starting quarterback was a true freshman, and he returns. So really high expectations for BYU. I'll get to them a little bit later. DJ Lagway is at Baylor now. He's no longer at Florida. But just think about how highly DJ Lagway was thought of coming out of high school and how high expectations were for him after that first year at Florida that he had. Really struggled with turnovers last year. But now he's at Baylor. Second stint in his career. Let's see how he does. Connor Wegman at Houston. That name might sound familiar to you, and if it does, it should. He was a 5-star coming out of high school too. He was at Texas A&M. Started as a true freshman. Transferred to Houston. He returns for his final year of college, and Houston is a team I have high expectations for. Again, I'll get to them later too. Avery Johnson is at Kansas State. He's another one of those, I believe this is his third year as a starter, dual threat guy, probably the fastest guy on Kansas State's team, needs to develop more as a passer. Colin Klein comes in. He returns to Manhattan, Kansas to be their head coach. Was the OC at Texas A&M the last 2 years. Was the OC at Kansas State before that. He played at Kansas State, was a Heisman finalist during his senior year. So he returns to Kansas State. Let's see what he can get out of Avery Johnson. Drew Mestemaker at Oklahoma State, anybody? Drew Mestemaker is one of the best stories in college football. Didn't start a game in high school. I believe it was he walked on to North Texas, or he got an offer at a camp despite not having started a game in high school. And he was top 5 in the country in passing yards last year. He follows his coach, Eric Morris, who, by the way, Eric Morris has worked with guys like Cam Ward. So the type of offense that he runs, which, by the way, is the air raid, is going to be great for a guy like Drew Mestemaker because he doesn't have to learn a new system despite going to a new school. He's just moving up. He's now in the Power 4 playing at Oklahoma State. Devin Dampier at Utah, a dual threat guy. He no longer has his OC from last year, which is going to be rough, but one of the more underrated dual threat quarterbacks in the country. Moving to the SEC, a lot of good quarterbacks in the SEC. Trinidad Chambliss, obviously. John Mateer at Oklahoma. He supposedly is going to be fully healthy this year, right? He had the thumb injury last year, which before the thumb injury, John Mateer was the favorite to win the Heisman Trophy. And then obviously when you hurt the thumb on your throwing hand, that can cause a lot of problems. So John Mateer's healthy this year. It's year 2 as the starter at Oklahoma. And he's a guy to watch. Sam Leavitt at LSU. Lane Kiffin handpicked him. 2 years ago, this guy led Arizona State to the college football playoff. Won the Big 12 that year. Was a 4th down away from advancing to the semifinals where they would have played Ohio State for a chance to go to the national championship game. So he's at LSU. Gunnar Stockton at Georgia had had a good year. There are a lot of mixed opinions on Gunnar Stockton. Some don't view him as in the elite of the elite in college football, and maybe he's not, but he's still a really dang good quarterback. And he finished in the top 10 of the Heisman voting last year. And the truth is, Gunnar Stockton may not need to be an elite quarterback for Georgia to be an elite team in college football. That's just the truth. And I don't think there's a whole lot of arguing with that. Arch Manning at Texas, there's a lot of hype around him. Lenore Sellers at South Carolina, the physical, raw ability that Lenore Sellers brings to the table is the reason that he's getting talked about as potentially being a first-round quarterback in 2027. 2 years ago, after South Carolina had that 9-3 regular season, just missed the college football playoff, that was the talk around Lenore Sellers. He returns for his last year, his final year of college football. Byron Brown at Auburn follows Alex Golish to the Plains from South Florida. This guy he was responsible for having the most, he had the most single season yards of any quarterback last year. Also is one of the best dual threat guys in the country. So he follows his coach, doesn't have to learn a new offense, which I do not think should be discounted. When you have a quarterback transferring to another school, but he's following a coach, he's following a system, having to not learn a new system, that really helps. That really helps. So he's at Auburn. I just put Alabama starter on my notes because we don't know if it's going to be Keelan Russell. We don't know if it's going to be Austin Mack. Kalen Bohr hasn't named a starting quarterback yet. I am inclined to believe that Keelan Russell is going to win this job, but I also believe that regardless of who starts at quarterback, they both have the potential to be really good quarterbacks in college football. So I just put Alabama starter on here. Marcel Reed at Texas A&M gets a lot of comparisons to Lamar Jackson. Very slender build, just like Lamar was. Very slender at Louisville. Very, very gifted runner. Needs to also develop as a passer. So that's something that a lot of people are going to expect Marcel Reed to make a jump in, make a leap in this next season. Moving to the Big Ten. There's some good quarterbacks in the Big Ten. Josh Hoover at Indiana. On the last show, very Big Ten heavy show, I went in depth on this. Kurt Cignetti has confidence that they have all they need at quarterback in Josh Hoover. If Kurt Cignetti has confidence in that, you and I should have confidence too. Because Kurt Cignetti has proved basically the entire country wrong. Because all of us at some point have doubted Indiana, and Kurt Cignetti just took a blowtorch to our opinions. En route to winning a national championship at 16-0. If he has confidence in Josh Hoover, I think we should have confidence in Josh Hoover too. Bryce Underwood at Michigan. The most talented recruit, or at least viewed as one of the most talented recruits in the 2025 cycle, started as a true freshman last year. It was what it was. But now you get Kyle Whittingham brought into the equation. You get Jason Beck brought into the equation at offensive coordinator. And I went through what Jason Beck has done at his previous stops. At New Mexico, took that offense from 44th to 4th in the span of 1 year. At Utah, the offense was in the 110, 111, 12, 13, 14, somewhere along those lines. And he took them to 4th in 1 year at Utah. What does that look like at Michigan when the resources are more plentiful, when you have more when you have more 5 and 4 stars to work with? I think that could be I think you really have something there. Julian Sayin was a Heisman finalist last year at Ohio State. And we know that he's going to have no shortage of weapons to throw to, a.k.a. Jeremiah Smith. Dante Moore, which I haven't shared this on the show, and I feel like now is a good time to do so. When Dante Moore made the decision to come back to Oregon for his senior year, a lot of people were saying, well, a lot of mock drafts had Dante Moore as the projected number 2 overall pick. He should have just declared for the draft, got his money, and boom. But I look at Dante Moore, and I know Dante Moore is a really smart, intelligent guy. And I believe that showed in this decision where he turned down all that money. And by the way, he's pretty well off at Oregon with all the Nike money that they have and Phil Knight and all that. Dante Moore's not exactly penny pinching here. He's fine. But Dante Moore also wasn't ready for the NFL quite yet. So coming back for another year of development at Oregon, proving that you can thrive when the lights are at their brightest, when you're in the prime time, trying to help Oregon get over that hump that people say they haven't been able to get over. I applaud the decision of Dante Moore to come back to Oregon for another year. And if he bet on himself, if he proves himself right, he'll be right back in this situation when the 2027 draft rolls around. So I applaud the decision. Rocco Becht at Penn State follows Matt Campbell over from Iowa State. Jaden Maiava at USC, third-year starter under Lincoln Riley. When have we talked about quarterbacks not having success under Lincoln Riley? Damon Williams at Washington. You remember that offseason saga. Tried to enter the transfer portal. Washington threatened legal action against him. He stays. At Big Ten Media Days, Washington's head coach, Jed Fish, was saying how the team is surrounding him, is supporting him. They're 10 toes behind him. Damon Williams is a really talented quarterback. Very, very talented quarterback. So I'm excited to see what he looks like at Washington this year. And CJ Carr at Notre Dame might be the early favorite to win the Heisman Trophy. CJ Carr, second year as the starter, sophomore. I have sky-high expectations for Notre Dame, and I'll probably get into that at a little bit of a later show. So those are the top quarterbacks in college football for 2026. Again,